Peace, family. It's your boy FONZi NeuTRON representing for Bout.online.com. We got a great guest this week as we continue to celebrate 50 years of hip hop and the culture, looking at the accomplishments of artists that have helped pave the way, pioneers, some that you might be familiar with, some that you might not be familiar with, but we know this hip hop movement has spread, worldwide and global. Has its inception, obviously, in the States, but in the UK, which some people might not be that familiar with, there's always been a huge hip hop climate and culture as well, growing even from like the breaking and stuff like that to the music. So we got a Birmingham, UK hip hop pioneer, KASH REX, joining us this week. It's a pleasure to have you. What's good with you, sir?
Yes, sir. It's a pleasure to be here, man, and always willing to, as I have done all my life, to represent my best foot forward for hip hop, and I'm proud to be one of its contributors. Absolutely. It's
No,
proud to be here.
I mean, how does it feel for you, just even asking that, to see hip hop being celebrated 50 years, so adorned worldwide. There's been so many different shows and stuff and celebrations this year, and really seeing the golden age and the golden era get its flowers. I mean, what does that feel like for you to see that?
Oh, that's just been amazing. It's like it's really come home. The fact that people are really pointing it out now, like 50 years. And that's like 50 years of it, in the mold that we all recognize it as. You can throw another 10 years on top of that for its actual development, from like initial conception, DJ Mario and cats like that, legendary cats like that in New York, right up to where we count it from when Kool Herc did that infamous party in 1973. That's where the 50 years starts from, and then you've got in association to us here in the UK, when we got a hold of it and when it started to influence us, and and for myself, it's been an amazing journey. It's been something that has been a part of my life ever since I first heard the Sugar Hill Gang's record and Total Pops right here in the UK. When I heard that, and I heard it, seeing the video at the same time, so I got the visual and the audio at the same time. My life changed from that moment. So to think now this is a 50-year movement from that, that's just incredible. Just incredible.
No doubt, man. I always say that hip hop, is definitely proven itself to be a strong part of our cultural identity in a lot of ways. And you just mentioned like Top of the Pops and just old TV shows and stuff. And we think like nowadays everybody's, I guess, we're spoiled with the internet and such variety. But going back when there was a limited amount of channels, especially within the UK, and then we look at just the importance of even representation and stuff as well, and the impact that that can have, seeing like, people that look like yourself on TV. At what point do you remember, like, sort of, I guess, the genesis of that influence within the UK coming from the US, and what was it like? I know you mentioned Grandmaster Flash and stuff, but what else of that was that kind of genesis like?
The real breaking point where we knew, and I certainly personally knew, my life would definitely change, and this is definitely gonna be taken over, was when the Wild Style movie dropped. When the Wild Style, and how I got it here is I got the soundtrack before I saw the movie. And so I was just lost in the soundtrack because it was just like I'm just hearing like real hip hop guy. Everything was live. It was all about them just performing Like every performance was live. You know, it wasn't a studio recording. It was a live performance. And just hearing these guys rap live, it was just incredible. Hearing the groups syncopate with each other, it was just mind blowing. And I think it was that moment that was a real life changing moment for us here in the UK, where we finally got to see it in its rawest kind of element, in its most entertaining element, and in the element where you can see the true crowd reaction. You know, I mean, some of the MCs were just incredible going up, and they've got to inspire this audience. It was this real audience that's in front of them. You know, real hip hop audience that's going to be hard, or you know, that's going to be if they don't want to get down with what's going down, they're going to ignore them. You know, real deal. This ain't told the pops now. This ain't where everyone has to dance or scream. This is the audience, this is a real audience. You know? And so that was mind blowing to me. The raps were just like it was listening to the raps there of Wild Style then would be like cats listening to the raps of I don't know Griselda, Conway the Machine, Benny the Butcher now. You know, it was just the most up to date, most upfront, the best styles, the illest styles, you know, and that was to me, it inspired me in a way. It reminded me of what was happening on what had been happening on the reggae scene, on the dancehall scene with all the MCs, and now here was something that was brand new. And this is for my generation. This is for us young cats. This is for us cats who wanted something other than the reggae scene. You know, this is, and that's how I always felt. Because I grew up being into jazz, funk, and P-funk, and so I knew I was about something other than the reggae scene, you know. And then when I saw hip hop, to me it was like, here's something that is still developing. Here is something that I can get that is for us now. Every other kind of music was already there when we were born, you know. We came into it; they're already there. But here's something that's starting now for us, and that was its number one attraction to my generation at that point, and certainly for me. Um, I just think that I wanted to make sure that we could snatch every bit of it because we didn't have anything, you know. So we were living in I was living in Handsworth, Lascelles, and we had nothing, you know, and then there was no money, and so you know we couldn't just run around and get whatever. You know, we just had to make do with whatever we had. And but whatever I had, I wanted to get as much of this thing that was happening in America, in New York, as I possibly could, in order to then be able to be a part of that, but here in the UK, and bring that to where I was, to Handsworth, you know, my hometown. That was my number one mission at that point, and it seemed like an impossible task. It was an uphill struggle all the way. I mean, it wasn't even on radio. Radio stations weren't playing it. None of that. No one was generally supporting. If it didn't make it to be a hit, you didn't see it. And so it was an uphill struggle, but I knew I had to make this happen. Bring hip hop to Birmingham. Birmingham has to have a hip hop scene. That was my number one agenda at that time.
And, you know, definitely salute on that because, you know, that perseverance would ultimately lay the foundation and, you know, open doors. As you said, just that time with radio and TV and certain things being probably a bit more scarce and visibility being more limited as opposed to where we're at now with like social media and stuff and just people being able to just broadcast their stuff out there on a wide, you know, just
they're so spoiled now, you know.
Yeah. I was gonna say, you know, because I get you, especially where you're coming from in terms of, you know, adding on to the culture and stuff and where it sort of come from and taking that US sort of influence. Did you ever experience any criticism from like people saying you sound or it sounded like too American or anything? Because at the same time I'd say, you know, the production was at the same sort of level as what was being produced out there, and I can completely understand that and respect it. But I know even for myself over the years of my generation, I had people that didn't understand that aspect of things. Whereas, now you've got people all over the world rapping in different ways and stuff. And did you get any backlash or criticism on that aspect?
Strangely enough, no. And that came much later. But at the time, it was more like everyone expected us to sound um, as close to the American accent as possible.
Of course,
They kind of expected that, and in fact, um, I don't know about London, but here in the Midlands, it was kind of an expected trait. If you're going to rap, you got to get close to the American tribe. You can be talking about what's happening here. You could be talking about anything you like here, but they just expected the sound to be as close to the American accent as possible. I don't know why. I don't know why I chose to go down that route. Years later, when I stopped and thought about it, I was like, why did I use the American accent? But it was just the way. And
I
I mean, even now, you've got English singers, especially R&B singers, who still sing in the American accent, still now,
of
and no
course,
one questions it. But years later, it did become a thing of people questioning it. Or why are people, why are UK rappers using the American accent? And but that was much later. It wasn't there in the 80s, and that came much later. Um, um, but coincidentally, you had groups like London Posse, who more brought in using their original British accent and rapping in that way, and a few other cats from London as well. And they, forced that kick the door down in that respect and forced that in.
mhm,
And then that was the way. That's been the way ever since. And then since then, you've had other stars, grime and everything else,
yeah.
come forward. But
I mean,
in the early days, it
it
was
was
just an accepted thing, you
yeah.
know.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty dope, or even just an interesting point of conversation because I do see it, and similarly, my outlook was always sort of like if somebody was to do like reggae music, I'd expect them to sound the closest thing to, the Jamaican power or whatever, in terms of the production. So, I was, and I still am, I guess, it might be a different way of looking at things. Some people, I know now things have changed. And what I noticed within a lot of the new stuff nowadays, a lot of the youngsters within the UK are more influenced from the stuff that's being produced within the UK and stuff as well, which is, nothing wrong with that. But just within the proximity. A lot of them now from, they could be from Birmingham, or they sound like they're from London, or, everybody uses the London sort of accent now, which that, as you said, kind of became a thing as well. Also, so
Right.
it's kind of crazy when we look at it like that. But I mean,
You know,
sorry, go ahead.
if I could just jump in there. The thing now is that like a lot of people forget that the UK thing, it didn't exist. So it's easy for people now to be able to say, oh well, we're influenced by what's happening here. You can't be influenced by something that doesn't exist yet. It
Of
didn't exist, so it had to be created. It had to come around to being there. To
yeah,
where there was tracks, English UK rap tracks in the English accent. You know. And be able to listen to radio shows and hear that, and be able to go to jams and hear that. Back then, that did not exist. So all we had of hip hop was what was coming from America. So if you're going to get influenced by something, you're going to get influenced by it. And then to be woken up and to the fact of, well, we can do this in our own accent, and we can just do our own way and then create that. That had to happen. That whole thing had to happen. I'm from an era where we saw we that hadn't happened yet, and that had to yet to be created. So people just have to try and imagine. And there's a lot of yets that hadn't happened yet, you know, in my era.
Yeah.
English rappers on TV, hits in the charts, you know, everything that everyone's used to now. Even like commercials. Now you're used to seeing a Lady Leisha on a TV commercial,
Yeah.
and Misdemeanor on sorry, my homegirl. Every female MC now who's doing things right, tremendous on TV commercials. That was
No.
unheard of
Yeah.
back then. And
Yeah.
so all these things had to be created and had yet to be created. So I'm from that early era. So everyone always has to put their mind into their scope of understanding. And this will make you understand how things are still being developed. No one was like dissing UK or what we were going through here. Because I mean, I was rapping about what we were going through here and what was happening here, but just in the way I thought it should
How it was.
sound, you
Yeah.
know. And so, and talking about Hands Up and Birmingham and, you know, and all that. But certain things just hadn't happened yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely, man. And that's what makes you, one of the pioneers, because it's the ideas and other people fighting for that and working towards that, being a visionary, because when something hasn't happened but you're being a part of it, you're adding on and building. So that's one thing I never forget. I know I seen an interview once with this artist Mist, and he was saying, there wasn't really any rappers in Birmingham before me, and I'm like, dude, stop it. You gotta give props and props to you. I know
That's
sometimes
crazy.
you might not be familiar, but you either do the knowledge, you get familiar, but you definitely got to respect the roads that were paved prior and stuff, and the people that put the hard work and stuff into achieving and just building. And as you said, because when I think I've just even how difficult it was in the 90s, you go back prior to that, the 80s, it's gonna be even more the 70s and stuff. Uh, what was one of the I guess biggest obstacles that you had to insurmount with I don't say throughout your whole career, but just with getting your stuff out there and really help getting established.
It really, one of the biggest hurdles. It sounds crazy now with us having hit artists from here like Lady Leisha, Tremendous, you know, and other cats. But back then, it was literally just the fact that I'm from Birmingham. It just wasn't seen as a place that would have anything um, to offer other than reggae and rock. That was it. Uh, um, you know, I had to create myself. People like great DJs like DJ IMD, who was like the cool Herc of Birmingham hip hop. You know, he's the DJ who really, was there. He was there right at the beginning when I was trying to break through. He's the DJ who did all the cuts and scratches on my very first record. It was the very first hip hop record out of Birmingham. These cats, when they were doing what they were trying to break through, he's trying to break it through on the DJ front. I'm trying to break it through on the rap front. But Birmingham at that point that was our biggest holdback. Was just the fact that we were from Birmingham. That seemed to be the biggest thing. If cats were saying they're from London, or any parts of London, it didn't seem like a strange. They didn't have such a hard time. Maybe cats from London would say a different thing. I don't know, but it wasn't so strange. But saying that we're from Birmingham and we're doing hip hop seemed to be a strange thing. And we wouldn't stop saying we're from Birmingham loud enough.
Yeah.
We'd say it even louder when people heard us in our way. But that seemed to be the biggest thing, and we just took that out. Okay, well that's the extra hurdle that I'm going to have to climb. Fine, I'm from nothing, and you're putting more hurdles in my way. I'll just climb harder, but I'm gonna make a hip hop scene in Birmingham. Period. No matter what you do or how you try and hold us back, it's gonna happen, right? But so that was kind of the biggest hurdle. You'll be amazed to know that one of the biggest hurdles as well was Birmingham itself. and by that I mean we had like pirate radio stations, when they first came along here, and we're great. We're so happy to have pirate radio stations and playing black music, and everything. But they weren't playing hip hop, and so I used to have to write to them because that's what you did back then. You wrote to the radio station. I
Yeah.
used to write letters to them, nagging them, please play hip hop. I'm so happy you're playing reggae. I'm so happy you're playing some soul music. But please, could you play some hip hop, some electro, some hip hop,
Yeah.
And I just kept doing that until it really, really got to them. And then one day they came to me and they said, you've been nagging us to play hip hop. Why don't you just come on and play it yourself? And that's how I got to go on and do the very first hip hop show in Birmingham because I had to do it. I had no notion of being a DJ, a radio DJ, or nothing like that. I want to be a rapper or some kind of a contributor to the hip hop scene in Birmingham. But I had to do it in order for there to be hip hop on radio. So I used my collection I had at home. I had no idea. They said to me, make your own jingles. I said, what's a jingle? Because I had no idea what a jingle is. And went on and did the first hip hop show. So, like I say, there can be, I mean, the whole music scene is a hurdle because you're going to have to, the music industry, because if you're going to want to make records and things, you're going to have to get into that music industry. So that was a massive hurdle you're going to have to get into down the line. But here are these other hurdles where we can't even get support on our own radio station. We can't even get like people acknowledging that we're from Birmingham and we're making hip hop. Those were some of the first hurdles that we had to get over, and we had to get it in people's minds. We do this. Get used to this.
Yeah.
We're talented. We were actually ahead of many cities in UK had not even touched hip hop yet. Birmingham was
I
way,
believe
and
that.
London were way ahead of
Yeah.
their time. And there was some states in America hadn't got into hip hop yet, and we had early from an early time here. When New York, people forget when New York first did its thing, there were other states who hadn't yet got into or even touched hip hop yet. But we got into it from we heard Sugar again. We were rapping it in school when we went back to school the next day and everything. So we were there when Wild Style dropped. We were there. So we just had to let the powers that be in Birmingham acknowledge that fact, and get used to us. That was a hurdle. Yeah.
Interesting. And you mentioned even just like producing a radio show and stuff, and sometimes people don't understand there's so many different aspects that you probably get into as a creative and an artist, promoting shows, putting on concerts, and many stuff that you did would have been a first, obviously, at that time. One of the people that's, I guess, synonymous with the hip hop industry within the UK and to a degree worldwide also is Tim Westwood. Now we know that in the earlier times, Tim Westwood was very instrumental in a lot of ways. You had some people that felt that I guess he was being backed and pushed as like the DJ who was only really allowed to play hip hop and stuff where others couldn't. Recently we've seen him be called out for some stuff, but I don't get too much into that. But what do you think of his position and just ultimately, I guess, his legacy within the UK hip hop scene?
Yeah, he was someone I got to meet obviously as the years went by, and strange enough, at first I don't know. Oh no, would have been about 30. We've actually been on the same shows, DJing on the same shows a couple of times in Birmingham, and then there was something he was playing on in London. It was a live outdoors thing. I was there with my group, Short Shot Rappers, one of my early groups. And I've also seen him and conversed with him in studios in London in the 90s when I was doing remixes at that point. But I mean, he's a cat who, like other cats, he was there early. And he did his thing for hip hop. There's no question about that. I mean, I know there's a lot of different things with him now and scandalous things, but his contribution to hip hop can't really be ignored. You know, he did his thing. He did his thing on radio. Made his way to all the way to a show on Radio One, which was quite big at the time. And he definitely contributed to hip hop, you know, and he was one of those cats. He even did TV, because I remember going to London and he had a TV show at that point.
Yeah.
You know, so and that was in the 80s when I just got signed to a label in London, and he had a TV show down there. I remember seeing him interviewing Karen White, singer Karen White, on his show. But yeah, he definitely contributed, and you know, he's one of those cats who we were always preparing. You know, if we made our records, he was the cat who was going to get our record to, and you know, trying to get him to play our record on his radio show or on his gigs. You know, he was that cat. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's definitely quite polarizing. I know, as you said, some people do feel as though his contributions are, you know, acceptable. Some feel as though I guess what they call nowadays like a culture vulture, because they say, oh, you know, he's from a different Anglican bishop background or whatever stuff. But I do feel he's putting work for the cultural stuff. You know, I used to work with him a bit as well back in the days, you know, doing more so street team stuff and, you know, things of that nature. But, you know, when I came in the game, he already was there. And then, you know, it's interesting because then after I seen like Charlie Sloth sort of come in, I was like, okay, you know, I do feel where people come from in the aspect where they say they do feel to a degree that, you know, they maybe if we're looking at BBC and organizations like that, they want to push a certain type of person to the forefront, which you know, I do say, okay, when it's England, you're kind of going to get that. We've seen like Radigan and stuff like that as well, you know what I mean? But ultimately, even when we're looking at things now with 50 years of hip hop, they still celebrate the initial roots. And as long as they tell history like it is, you know, that's generally okay. I think I heard something on, could have been Radio One or one of those stations the other day that did something for 50 years of hip hop, but they was really going back and, you know, talking about the cool heads and, you know, spinning some of the old records and stuff. I said, okay, you know, I'll give credit where it's due.
Yeah. I think like someone like Tim Westwood, especially at the time, he would have been like a novelty, if you can understand. He's not a novelty because you know, he goes back, he's got history and everything, right? But if you could imagine, here's this white cat playing hardcore hip hop and using all the slang. Now that's going to stand out, right? It's
Yep.
just going to stand out. And so I would imagine that, you know, to radio stations, TV, to whoever, you know, that will be interesting. You know, there's just something that stands out. He's a white dude, he's playing hip hop, nothing but hip hop, and using the twang. He stands out. So they're going to want to push that. Um, where the other cats who could have done exactly the same thing, black dude, absolutely, very talented cats at the time. IMD should have could from here easily could have done that. You know, one of the best hip hop DJs, not just in Birmingham but in the world. And DJ Scooby Swift, again, a DJ who I worked with, easily could have done that job. He would have done an amazing job. This is a dude. I saw that dude set fire to a record he was playing while he's scratching the record. You know, put some like lighter fluid on the thing and then set fire to it and he's scratching the record.
Yeah.
If that isn't imagine that on the internet these days.
Yeah.
And we just had everything with audio back then. You know, you had to be at the jam to see that. But imagine that on the internet now. That would be phenomenal. He was doing that then in the 80s. You know, before any of us had a record deal. And talking about record deals, let me just say, people forget that, like, I got signed in 1988, but I've been rapping seriously since I heard the Wild Style album, right? So what, 82, 83, you know? seriously, where I'm saying, I'm seriously going to do this. Seriously going to do this. This isn't like what I was doing the last 2 years where I'm just doing it, but it's not serious. I'm seriously going to do it, right? Been rapping from then until I got signed in '88. So everything I was doing up until '88 was just live. All of hip hop in Birmingham at that point was live. You had to be at the jam to see it. You had to be there to hear it. You know, unless you then would hear one of the tapes that get passed around afterwards, you had to be there in order to hear it. You had to be there in order to see it, us perform. This is where my performance came from, because I've had all these years of doing that with myself and the hip hop groups that I started all those times. And so I think that was one of the best educations that I ever had, was that my live period from 82 to 88. That was the best education I ever could have had in hip hop. And anyone who's ever, you know, if you're an artist and all you've ever known is a studio, there's a big phase of your hip hop life that's missing. A big phase of your hip hop education that's missing. You have to do the live thing. You know, you have to do the live thing. It is, and I mean with a DJ, not with that machine, not with whatever however they do it these days. Do it with a live DJ, cutting and scratching, and you rapping over that. You know, that is real live hip hop. If that doesn't educate you, nothing will. That's the education that I had. You know, and all the early cats. That's how we came up.
A ghetto is not only a suburban quarter of a city inhabited by a majority of one racial group. It's a way of life.
I'm back. Let's get some fists in the air now. Come on, everybody. We gonna have a party tonight. Yeah. Let's hype it up. Reefer, here it is. I'm selling it. You believe that? You're a hijack. Anyway, now I got your attention. Girls not allowed with extension. You gotta dance to the color, get a hammer cat. Refuse to strut, you get a kick butt. And it's simple and easy like an old dude. Ain't got a clue? Leave the crew. Hear me now. Step aside. Move aside. Take a ride. I take a note, take a vote, but get off the bandwagon. What is this, a free flow? You wanna get off and stay off. I ain't got the time for no payoff. Hear me now, the master, loud and proud. Without a doubt, check this out, set it out. You gotta go right now to the record store. Get his and hers and steal yours. Sometimes I'm drunk and I mess it up, but who really cares? I blows up.
Yes, welcome back, guys. I appreciate you guys tapping in with us. Give us a shout in the comments. Let us know what you think. Definitely head over to BoutThatOnline.com. I want to shout out Mixer Reviews also for the reviews and stuff he's doing there. So picking back up with KASH REX, we spoke just a bit about the live music scene. We spoke about, you know, your early genesis in like hip hop and being signed, you know, doing your own performing, you know, your own writing and stuff like that. Nowadays, we're seeing a huge surge with technology, with AI and things of that nature. And, you know, people are looking at it from an aspect to say, how can this, you know, potentially affect creatives and artists going forward? I mean, what are your thoughts on just this surge of like AI rap and stuff? Do you feel it's a hindrance to the creative industry, especially for like artists, songwriters, performers that have, you know, really put their blood, sweat and tears in, and now, you know, somebody can probably just type a couple of things in and like chat GPT or something and produce a song?
It's definitely a different time. But you know, the no matter what technology or whatever else comes along, people who really know hip hop, I mean, real and actual hip hop. And remember, the music part of it is just one element of it. You know, hip hop is a whole culture. You know, and there's other elements to it other than just its music. Even though its music is predominantly what is mainly known about hip hop, but it's not all about hip hop. And hip hop, traditionally, as it came up, is it's a DIY music. It's a do-it-yourself music. It's a street orientated street creation, right? It comes from the people, for the people, by the people. And it really is all it needs to be, right? Predominantly, all you need is two turntables and a microphone to be able to make hip hop. That's in its rawest, realest form. Two turntables and a microphone, right? And a DJ and an MC, right? Master of the ceremony. Now, when you break it right down, which you always should in your understanding of hip hop, not what the media tells you about hip hop, but your understanding of hip hop culture. When you break it down, that then in its rawest elements, you know that it is beyond. It doesn't. It is not necessary for technology. It doesn't necessarily need all that technology in its really some rawest form. If hip hop tomorrow just has to be an underground phenomenon like it was in the 70s, the early 80s, then that's what it will be. But it will always be. Now, people may have, and especially with the music industry, they may go on to have another version of it. You understand? That they, because they've already tapped into their version of it anyway, because they just presenting you the rapper. Now, that is not essentially true hip hop, just presenting the rapper. True hip hop is the rapper and the DJ and the rapper, right? That is true hip hop. The DJ was always originally the star of hip hop. Always people don't know that, but they got to remember that it was the music industry that made the rapper the star, because all they know is working with singers and groups. They know the singer goes up front and the singer is the star, so they made the rapper the star. You see, but really the star is Kid Capri. The star is Grandmaster Flash. The star is Cool Herc. MCs were MCs were, they were there to keep the party rolling. Do something on the mic and also make it visual. Not to downplay rappers. I've been one myself, but I'm just saying, hip hop came from the important person being the DJ. So why I'm saying all this is, when you break hip hop down to its rawest original form, it doesn't need any of the glimmer to glamour and whatever else that comes with it. So it then depend on the audience. Do you want to be hearing hip hop in its realest form, or do you want to be hearing a facto similar, a creation thereof, a plastic similar version? Is that what you want? People will have to question that, but real hip hop won't suffer because of all of that, because real hip hop in its realest essence, it will always be on street level, will always be on the most, it will be the have-nots that will still have hip hop, because it was created by the have-nots. They know how to have hip hop with nothing, you see. So when you come from that I come from that kind of entity. I come from that world where we had nothing. I would bring a microphone, right? My brethren would bring a turntable. The other brethren would bring the other turntable, and another brethren would bring the mixer. We would come together and we got jammed up, you see, and we can rehearse and everything, and we can do hip hop, right? We go to the park, someone will bring a lino, and the b-boys would break dancing. We bring all that stuff, and we'd have hip hop in the park in the UK. We did this in the 80s. That's real hip hop, see, in its real entity. Now, all those things I just mentioned to you, you're going to have. I would imagine everyone's got at least one of those things somewhere in their house, right? Of those entities, or even now you can use your phone for various things, right? But you see what I'm saying? I'm saying, like, in its rawest essence, it doesn't take much to be able to have real hip hop. So the big question will be, what are people, the public, going to settle for? Are you going to settle for a computerized, tapped-in version of hip hop, right? Giving you hip hop, and presenting to you a created MC who's they created the image of this person, and everything. You can never go and touch or see this person or converse with this person in real life, because if they don't really exist, they created it's all AI. Are you going to settle for that, or would you settle for something that can always be, will always exist, which is real hip hop in its real essence? That is the real question. So I'm not worried about AI or any of that, because I know how to do real hip hop. I come from it. So I'm not worried about AI. And in fact, now that you mentioned it, just the other day I saw an interview with uh, he's a well-known American rapper, and he was saying he's had trouble with his voice, right?
DOC?
There's a DOC who AI could definitely help him as well, but there's the other cat, Beanie Siegel.
Oh, Beanie,
right?
Okay, yeah.
Right? Because he's got voice
problems
and all that.
And it changed
right. And he announced the other day that he's working on a project now where he's going to be using AI in order to be able to bring forth a new album, right? Because obviously he says the pen is still there, obviously, because he's always been, but he's just got trouble with the voice. So AI is able to help him, and as it could help DOC as well, because obviously with DOC the same, the pen is still there, but the voice. So cats like that, AI actually could be beneficial to hip hop. We're bringing back two of our greatest MCs. So in that way, it could be very beneficial. So it will be a question of whether people want to settle for something that is artificial and, as I say, could never really perform in front of you or be real like that, or would you rather settle for something that is so easily done and has never gone away, which is real hip hop in its real essence, two turntables and a microphone? That will always be. It will never go away. It will never be replaced. Even if they want to take the AI hip hop to the top of charts and that just be the only thing that the media presents, roll with it. But real hip hop will always exist, street level, always. Hear it.
And I'll definitely have to give you that. And that definitely coincides with what we see now, just hip hop being celebrated worldwide as it should be, as we oversee the 50th year anniversary continually being celebrated all year. Definitely that gave me some points to really think about on the AI aspect. And because I suppose, like everything in every form of technology, it's got its pros and its cons of how it could be used, I should say. One of the, I guess, dangers that I see or foresee is, I think you mentioned just like people, what would they prefer, like the reality or the simulation in a sense. But I think one of the dangers could be in some cases if they don't know the difference or how hard it might be for them to discern the difference, depending upon how these things can be utilized. As you said, like now with just technology, you could potentially, create an artist or an actor that doesn't exist. I was just watching the new Flash movie, or it might not be that new now, and they've CGI'd, the old Superman, the Christopher Reeve, and they've put Helen Slater in there, but it's them looking young as they did in the, so there's a lot of stuff that we see in these times, and obviously it's kind of crazy because, as you mentioned, with just hip hop essentially is I don't want to say goes against that, because I know people give it like an anti-establishment sort of slant, but as you said, coming from like the have-nots and really being something that kind of rips the lid off what's going on in society, in a sense, being socio-political, geopolitical in some cases and stuff as well, and just really having that side. And I think that's kind of what I see missing from a lot of artists nowadays. I know we can't really judge artists on, the people they are, but even like yourself and many others from earlier generations were more rooted in just having a conscious mind and being able to say something that translates just past their music. Still having great music, but they can speak on something, they can drop some value and some insight that people can take away and learn from. So we definitely salute you for that. Like for young people and young artists and stuff out there, I mean, what would you impart as any messages before we wind out to them, and just any words of encouragement for like young artists on the comeback?
Right. You know, everything that you want can be created. You know, just like hip hop itself was created, and it was created by people who had nothing. You know, and so always remember that it is your own. Your limits are your own creativity. You know, and just like how hip hop was created, and then it was taken. You know, everyone wanted a piece of it. Everyone wanted to buy into it. Everyone wanted for it to work for them. Just, you know, just think on that. Just stop for a second and think that the hip hop, like I said, in its rawest form, two turntables and a microphone and a mixer, you know, became $1 billion industry, right? So you've got to value that, right? And also, as you become knowledge, I'm talking to specifically to the young now, and I'm talking to the young DJ. As you become knowledge about hip hop, as you get to know the ledge, right? Then please pass it on. It is your, if you ask me, that's the one and only thing that hip hop should ask of its members, if you like, to pass it on. Pass on the knowledge, pass on the history, you know. If you're a young cat now, you're listening to hip hop. Say you're listening to a hip hop hip hop on the radio, right? It's a radio station that you're listening to play hip hop or hip hop show, and those DJs are not giving you the history as well, the knowledge of hip hop. Then you should be contacting them and asking them why they ain't doing that. You know, because why are cats celebrating 50 years of hip hop? And you know, why is that? Because it's got 50-year recording, at least a 50-year development, and then recorded history, right? So, and then a 10-year development history before that 50th year started, right? So you should want to know why they aren't teaching you about some of that. Why? They got 2-hour show. In a 2-hour show, you can't teach them history about where it came from. Why isn't that important? You know, and because, and the reason why I say that that's important is it because if you want to, in another 50 years from now, be celebrating another 50 years of hip hop, you have to know where it came from. You have to know where you're from in order to know where you're going. It helps, and especially with hip hop, it is integral because it will teach you how to make hip hop and how to conserve hip hop. You see, like what I was just talking about with it in its rawest essence. That teaches you that in its rawest essence, it only needs what you already have. So you don't need what the media is telling you need, and what a lot even YouTube sites are telling you need in order to have a music career and this and that and that and this and publishing deal and blah 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 and everything else. That's what you need to have a music career. It's not what you need in order to have a hip hop life, you know. And so the two things are different, and yet when you make hip hop, you then make hip hop and then give it to the music industry, right? But when you live hip hop, that is two different things, right? So people need to learn that. People need to have knowledge of that, and especially the young need to have knowledge of that, and they need to know that when you become a DJ, you not only become a DJ, you also become like a historian, a keeper of the music, right? And you then have to acquire knowledge. You then have to pass on the knowledge to the next who are coming up after you. And if that keeps on going, because I was always in fear of that when I came off radio. I was in fear of, will the next guys do what I've just been doing? Will they expand that, you know, and bring that knowledge on? Will they do that? Will they acknowledge that that is an important part of it. And you know what? A lot of cats haven't. But then again, as well, maybe they themselves didn't acquire very much knowledge. So, um, but that is an important part because you've got to always, cats can't be turned around thinking that, you know, hip hop started at 1994 or something. And then other cats turn around thinking hip hop started in 2000. And, you know, there's one line of knowledge that must be, the story must be told and can be easily expanded. It can easily be spread onto listeners. It's not hard to do. Doesn't take much, and it's worthwhile. Especially if you say you're dedicated to hip hop. Well, you know, be dedicated to the culture of it.
That's real.
And also teach more about the other elements of hip hop. You know, not just the music. You know, about the b-boying, which was there right at the start. You know, with the b-boying, with the b-boys and b-girls. You know, the graph, the art, the graffiti. You know, teach about the DJing skills and how that came up. You know, there are many more elements to the culture. You know, and you know, respect each other. You know, say peace. You know, and wish a brother and a sister well. You know, as they continue on in their life, man. You can and you know, take those elements that hip hop always brought into from the beginning in order to better the people who are in hip hop, so that they'll be safe in the hip hop jams, so that they'll be safe in those parks, so that they'll be safe in those broken down houses, you know, while they're doing hip hop. You know, teach them about the peace element. You know, teach them about the Zulu Nation and all the different parts of hip hop. It's important, you know. It really is. Be more than what the media tells you is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I could definitely echo that sentiment and say it's a wise word because, you know, often people do forget, or sometimes they may not be aware, but there are wider elements of hip hop and even fundamental elements of just, you know, the lifestyle and the culture, peace, love, understanding, you know, having fun. And we look at just, you mentioned like the breaking and the different aspects. You know, God bless the dead. I was good friends with Shabba Duke and Yonez, also known as Ozone from the breaking and breakdance movies, another progenitor and pioneer just in the culture. And, you know, when you hear him tell his story of just how he was motivated and influenced by just the soul train dancing and different kind of aspects and elements and just those parts of how that molded and morphed into, you know, some of the later parts of hip hop and the earlier parts of hip hop in one aspect also. So
absolutely, and as well, all those elements still going right now. There are brand new break dancers around the world breaking, you know, just doing incredible things.
He was
right now
about it, that people give that credit where it's due and attribute to the fundamentals and the originators, because as you said, a lot of people are doing it now, but there's a bit of a disconnect in some aspects where they're not giving the flowers to those who, you know, really created, spearheaded, and pioneered a lot of it. So,
right.
You know, before we wind out, I just want to ask you, you know, as we mentioned, 50 years of hip hop, will you have anything that you're going to be doing special before the year's out? Any releases, anything that you want people to look out for? And where can everybody find you on social media?
Right. Well, one of the things I'm working on at the moment is one of my music partners, a good friend of mine, has he's got his own rum drink called ID Rum, and so we're working on making a hip hop track for that rum. You know, like how when Run DMC came out with My Adidas, talk about their Adidas, you know, and it worked very well for Adidas with their trainers and whatnot. You know, we're planning on doing the same thing for ID Rum with a hip hop joint, you know, because my homeboy, he grew up watching me and his brother. His brother used to come on stage with me and perform. Brother's name Chan. And he used to come on stage with me and watch me perform. And now he used to, come to my house, hear my record collection. He loves hip hop, always has. And now he's got his own rum, and he's still so connected with hip hop. So I just think he should have his rum should have its own hip hop joint,
Nice.
So we got my boy, Dylan working on fly hip hop joint at the moment, the music, and I'll be doing some rap on there myself. My boy Chan and some other cats will bring them forth onto that track, and we're gonna be representing our way of bringing hip hop through with something with the drinks culture and the hip hop connecting right there. But it should be really really interesting. I'm also doing a couple of docus that I'm going to be involved with at the moment. Should be coming your way soon. I know there's a 50th year one that should be coming soon, and a few other bits and pieces that's happening. Should be. I'm sure we're trying to get a live thing, club session going as well with a live hip hop band.
Okay.
And like MCs can come and do their thing and rap with a live hip hop band. We're trying to get that off the ground as well. So should be. I definitely want to do a few things for the hip hop 50th year, before the year's out. So yeah, and online you can catch me out on Instagram, Kash Rex 1. Everyone knows my name is spelled KASHREX, right? So there are still people who still spell my name with a C. So even after all these years, you can also catch me on Threads. You can catch me on Twitter, and I am on Facebook, but that's mainly for family, close friends. But most of my music stuff will go on Instagram.
You got the Spotify and stuff like that as well. You got music up on Spotify and those digital.
I keep saying I need to put all my old catalog onto Spotify. I just haven't got around to it yet. I'm so terrible when it comes to that, but I will definitely get onto that. Especially when this new joint is done, I will definitely get onto it by then and get all the old catalog onto Spotify, and then I'll hit you back and I'll let you know and let peeps know when that is happening. But I will definitely get around to that. I've been teaching hip hop, the history of hip hop. Been teaching it to university students who study music and whatnot. Been doing it online, and then this year was one of the first years I went down to London to do it live in person. So it's been amazing. Just to, again, this is what I believe. You got to spread the culture, you got to spread the knowledge, spread the culture, and so that's what I've been doing as well. Yeah.
Well, definitely sounds like exciting times, and we definitely want to salute you for being an advocate and a teacher. You just signed off and said that you've been teaching. Myself, I should say, I did get that sentiment throughout the conversation that you do have that natural teaching element and stuff as well, and it's good to see, because we know that definitely was instrumental to artists and rappers at one stage, where people feel nowadays a lot of the message and teaching has been skewered or in some cases taken out. So guys, we're going to wind down on this one. Do join us on BoutThatOnline.com for more reviews, news, and interviews. Shouts out to Mixer holding it down while we be on here doing these videos and these podcasts. Kash Rex, it's been a pleasure. We definitely look forward to having you back on the platform. Do keep us updated with things that you've got going on for the rest of the year.
I will do, my friend. Thank you, the whole Bout That Online crew, man. Respect to you guys, man, and thank you for looking out for old schooler, man. I appreciate that.
Love is love, man. One love, man.
Fresh with the drop. About that music group, we got it locked. FONZi NeuTRON, floss with the mold. Already know we the hottest across the globe. Bout.